Cosmic Connections. I'm Starling Brighter here with Christopher and Faye, and today we are interviewing another one of the speakers for the Cosmic Patterns Conference. That is an in-person conference going to be next year, 2025, March 7 through 9 in Orlando, Florida. So we're speaking with Ray Merriman today. Ray Merriman has been in the world of astrology for a very, very long time, and he is his website is MMAcycles.com. Ray is the president of the Merriman Market Analysis, which is the MMA Inc. He is the world leader in financial market timing products and services since 1981, and also founded MMTA, the Merriman Market Timing Academy, and a 2-year training program based on his own original research studies and methodology for financial markets. So we're really excited to talk to him. He has had a lot of experience and he's shared a lot of wisdom over the years. He has a book that's coming out. He will be doing one of the pre-conference workshops, and he also will be holding a panel that will consist of the legends of astrology. And this will be having the heads of various astrological schools in the world. And these people will also be at the conference. They are including Alexander Imsurgic, Carol Tebbs, Oner Dozier, Charlotte Benson, Pam Gallagher, and Demetria George. So it's really exciting to talk to you today, Ray. How are you doing? And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be with you. And I'm very excited about this conference coming up in Orlando, March 7th to 9th. And I hope we see many of the people viewing this in person.
Yes. So I've asked almost all of the speakers when we first start off, what drew them into astrology? I know you've been into astrology and working with astrology for a long time, but what drew you into it? Do you have a story behind that? And also, because you're a financial astrologer, I'm curious if you were into finance first or astrology first, and how did that happen? Because you've been so successful with doing this.
There's several stories, but I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. I was a psychology major at Michigan State University. That was my degree in psychology, and I did postgraduate work there in Oakland University, University of Michigan. But in my last term of undergraduate studies, I was taking graduate courses, and I'd already been introduced to astrology by a couple of my friends back in the mid 60s who went to Haight-Ashbury and came back very excited about this community, this commune business that was going on in California, where everybody who was living together in these houses was also interested in astrology. So my interest was psychology, but they gave me a book called Astrology by Ron Davidson. And that was my introduction to astrology. I said, wow, this is like psychology on steroids. This is everything that's taken me 3 or 4 years to learn. No matter, this book is like a shortcut to it. So in my last year of undergraduate studies, I decided I wanted to do a thesis toward my master's in social psychology that dealt with the idea that a subculture was forming in America. And the subculture were those who were turning on, tuning in, and dropping out, and living communally. So I talked to the Milton Rokeach, Dr. Milton Rokeach, who had the Value Rokeach survey, which identified 18 short-term and 18 long-term values, and he applied it to all these different segments of society, by race, by religion, by career, gender. And he says, well, if you think you've got something here that there really is a subculture developing that you're describing, you need to get at least 100 people to take this survey, and we'll compare them to the surveys we've done. And I said, okay. So I went to all the communes in Michigan I could find, Illinois, went to the White Panthers, the Fifth Estate, Ohio, Yonge Street in Toronto. And I finally got 100 people. It's hard to get hippies. They weren't, well, I guess they were hippies at that time. We were flower children first. It was hard to get these people to take exams. But the thing that was interesting is every commune I went to, it was the same thing. What sign are you? What's your rising sign? What's your moon sign? And I says, damn, something's going on. I think I'm onto something. There is a subculture developing here. So by the time we finished all those surveys and gave them to Dr. Rokeach, he called me in at the end of the semester and says, you know something? These are off the chart. These are completely different than any other segment of society we have surveyed. For instance, most people at that time were interested in salvation, family security, financial security. But my group that I interviewed was interested in world peace, a world of beauty, um, art. You know, they're interested in the cultural, artistic things. These, wherever they had high values, the other groups had low values, and vice versa. Happiness was very important for the flower children, but it wasn't that high up. It's just in the middle of the area for the majority of society. So it was very interesting, and he thought it was worthwhile to get that published. So we sent it into I forget the psychological magazine at the time, and they did publish it. And that's what really got me interested in astrology, was my background in psychology. And I will say from that, I wasn't the only one. There was a whole movement that revolutionized astrology that began in the late 60s, early 70s. And it came out of the humanistic psychology field. They began to realize, as we did too, that astrology is just not entertainment. It's just not fortune telling. Astrology is a helping tool. And our role has not been the traditional role of astrologers, which was to be oracles, to make decisions for clients. Our role was to be choice givers. We offer choices. These are the choices you have. And that was the value of the modern day astrology movement, coming out of humanistic psychological background that many of us at that time started. And I'm very proud to have been part of that group, which we now call today the Legends of Astrology.
Yeah, I love that. And yes, we interviewed Rick Levine, and he said he was interested first with psychology as well, going to school for that. So it's interesting how that evolution came from that.
Well, you know, if you look at your faculty, I would say of your 24 speakers, probably 16 of them are part of this Legends group. They've been working toward the transformation of astrology from a hobby that was even illegal in many states prior to 1990 to a credible profession where we respect each other in the field. Back then, they were all backbiting. There's a lot of respect in our field now, and there's probably tens of thousands of professional astrologers now. Whereas prior to I would say the 1980s, you could probably say there were probably less than 30 or 40 that were making a living in astrology. It's tens of thousands that do it today, and it's because of these people and the movement that we were engaged in, and we're collectively to transform this study that we think is so noble, so beautiful, and so wonderful.
Yeah, I think through that process, I believe Maxine Taylor made astrology legal in Georgia.
That's right. That was they were one of the first that made us. It was her, and I think Lillian Huber was involved in that. There was a group with them, Renee Goodale, but they actually got astrology legalized to be practiced without penalties anymore in Atlanta, Georgia. They were the first. And after that came the movement of AFAN, which these legends were part of with me to founding AFAN, which their purpose was to legalize astrology. That was their main purpose. They did other things too. They networked us, but they started the whole process of legalizing astrology under J.H. Jacobs. And we owe a great deal of respect to the work that he did to transform this profession.
So I did not realize that astrology was illegal to practice in Georgia. Was it just Georgia, or was it others?
No, it was Florida, it was Georgia, it was Michigan, it was Colorado. It was a lot of states. You were either a loiterer or a fortune teller or a gypsy, and it was illegal to be any of those.
I
Now,
had
in
no, I had
Georgia,
no
that
idea.
changed in the 1970s. They were the first. J.H.
Mhm.
Jacobs and AFAN, their major work in getting this off the books of illegal activities in most states took place probably from about 1982, 84 to about 1990. By 1990, it was wiped out. It was wiped off. It was no longer illegal. So it was illegal in many states until then.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we're doing all this research to make
Oh,
it more in the scientific side. We'll see how it goes.
the
Advancing it.
research that you're doing, the research that we're doing at MMTA, um, what I've been reading about what you've done, and I know what our group has done, it's every bit as high quality, um, uh, impeccable methodology that would be equivalent to a master's or doctorate thesis in colleges. In fact, probably even more so today than it was when I was there. But it's amazing the stuff that they turn out. I mean, I get 30 or 40 page dissertations. Every course, we have 8 courses. Every course, they got to do a research project. And it's usually 15 to 30 pages, minimum 30 to 40 pages. And it's so well structured. It's so well designed. And the research that they come up with is so different than what you'd expect from most of astrology, but it still proves there is probabilities. There is statistical significance here in the correlations of astrology to financial market turns.
Yeah. Um, I'm geared towards illnesses.
Yeah,
So,
you're geared toward, I mean, your whole group has been geared toward physiological and sociological things. We're geared toward financial markets.
yeah,
And we're
great.
both doing good research. It's both numbers crunching, quantitative studies, and it is
Mm,
impressive.
yeah.
And so that leads me to the other part of my question. Were you in studying astrology first, or were you into working with the financial
No, I
markets?
was studying psychology first, then I became an astrologer, and
Mm-hmm.
in 1978, a client came to me and wanted to know if there's any correlation between astrology and the stock market. And I said, well, I don't know, but if you want to sponsor me for 1 week and put me, in some secluded place with, stock charts and incorporation dates, I'll do a study for a week and give you what, what I find out might be significant. So she gave me 20 companies, gave me their historical performance, gave me their incorporation dates, and after 1 week, I thought, there's five companies here that look very interesting, and I suggested you and your benefactor invest in these 5 companies, and she did. She invested in $10,000, I think it was, in the companies. Now, bear in mind that at that point, the Dow Jones only moved like 100, 150 points in the year. This is in March of 1978. So they bought these companies, these 5 companies, in March of 78. They sold them at the date I gave them in September, 6 months later, and they made 28%. That's a pretty good return for 6 months back then with a market that only moved in the whole year from low to high, maybe 10 or 15%. So I thought, there might be something here. And then my next step was when I gave my annual forecast speech in Tucson, Arizona in 1980, as gold was making its all-time high. And in the audience was Walter Bressert, a director for the Foundation of Cycles. He's interested, and he is one of the largest commodity analysts, market letter writers in the world at the time. And his wife came up afterwards and asked me if I'd like to have dinner with him because her husband liked to talk to me. I wasn't really interested until she said her husband and her have a macrobiotic cook. That interested me. Speaking about health, so I accepted the invitation. He took me to the back room where his in-house office was. He had an office downtown Tucson too. But in the back of his house, in his office area there, he had the price of gold charts all across his back wall. He said, Ray, I noticed something here. Look at, here's the high of this year, here's the low. Here's the high of this year, here's the low. He pointed out six highs and lows, 3 highs, 3 lows, and they're 2 years apart. He says, I don't know if there's anything to this, but in every case, Mars is going retrograde and direct. I'm not an astrologer. Do you think there's anything to it? I said, well, maybe. I mean, they're only within 3 days, the high and low of the year were on those dates when Mars changed direction. He said, if I give you these charts, would you see if you can find any more correlations? And also, I'd like to teach you cycles. Would you mind being, studying with me? And so I went all over the country to his seminars he gave to traders, investors, farmers, commodities people. I learned what cycles were all about, cycles in financial markets. Then I correlated all his cycles, tops and bottoms that he taught me, with all the aspects between all the planets since gold began trading freely in 1971, 72. And I found 17 correlations that were just as strong as that Mars retrograde and direct. I mean, there's like 150 or 160 ones that I looked at, but there were 17 that stood out. And so I wrote a book the gold book, Geocosmic Correlations of Gold Price Cycles, the first quantitative study ever done on any financial market with astrology. I sent it to him. He sent it to Financial News Network. A week later, they called me and says, "We want to fly you in here to Los Angeles in our studios and interview you." Now, at that time, I had 35 subscribers. The next week, I had 350 subscribers. So I went from being a consulting astrologer to a financial astrologer pretty quickly after that. My whole life changed, and that's how I got really involved in financial astrology.
And I mean, finance is such a different a niche than just the psychological part of astrology. And because we have the dates and times and all of that, it must be really exciting when you start to find the trends and the things that are happening, being able to, that must have been an exciting path
Well, there's
to
two
walk
parts to
on.
that. I mean, you got the client who wants information on their chart and their financial cycles, and then you got the client who's a trader or an investor and wants to know, what do I think the market's going to do based on my cycles work combined with astrology. So I have my foot in both worlds. I'm in astrology. I'm a financial astrologer, and field of finances, I'm a market analyst or a financial market timer. And I enjoy both roles. I enjoy both communities.
So your session that you're going to be doing, what that's going to be on what?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce people to the world of financial market timing, combining cycles with astrological indicators. Now, astrology doesn't necessarily tell you if the market is going up or down. It tells you when the psychology of the investor changes. So a trine can just as often be a high as it is a low. A square can just as often be a low as it is a high. So whatever the market is doing going into that aspect or combination of aspects, we have to look for what we call clusters, several aspects happening in a short span of time. That's the turning point of the collective psychology. If it's been going up bullish, it turns. There's a correction, it turns down and has a decline, or it actually changes the trend and turns into a bear trend. So you won't know how far or how important that reversal is going to be unless you know where you are in the cycle. If you're beginning the cycle, it's going to be bullish. If you're in the cycle, it's going to be bearish. But you got to know where you are. Now I'm talking about the rhythmic cycle of each market. For instance, the stock market has an 18-week cycle, okay, and it has an 18-year cycle. And the first one third of that, the first 6 weeks or the first 6 years, is bullish. The last 6 weeks or the last 6 years is the steepest decline. So if you know where the tops and bottoms are likely to occur by the cycles, and then you see the astrology uh, gatherings focus in that within that cycle on a certain date or a certain week, you have an idea that okay, if this market is going up, that's the end of that cycle. It's going to come down. Or if it's been going down, that's the end of that cycle. It's going to go up. And you know what? It works about 80% of the time, which is pretty good odds.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, awesome. So it sounds like that's a class that almost anybody could take and they're going to be able to.
Yeah, if you're a beginning astrologer, if you're a beginning astrologer, you learn about the basics of cycles. If you're a beginning market person, well, you probably should know a little bit about astrology. It really depends upon knowing what an aspect is and what a planet and a sign is. You don't have to use houses. Planet signs and aspects, or harmonics in your case, is all that you need for market timing. Um, and then you need the cycles to know whether it's, how important it is.
Okay. So it
Yeah,
sounds like if you have just a basic understanding of astrology, you'll be good
that's
to
right.
go to the
Yeah, you
class.
don't
Yeah.
have to be
Awesome.
a
Perfect.
professional. You just have to know the language, the beginning
Okay.
parts of the language.
Wonderful.
Planet
Wonderful.
signs and aspects is
Okay.
enough.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know.
yeah,
And you're going to share in the pre-conference about how we can apply this knowledge to different things like the market,
yeah.
gold,
We're going to
Bitcoin.
we're going to project these methods onto the UX stock market, onto gold, onto Bitcoin. So we will give you, where we think the market's going based upon our knowledge of cycles and putting the astrology together with it, where we think the tops and bottoms are going to be. We've got a pretty powerful one coming up next summer, 3 months after we meet. We got Jupiter square Neptune, Jupiter square Saturn, all in the same week. That's the biggest conglomeration going on next year, and it's powerful. We call it a very strong intermediate term cycle. So we look for markets to move 15 to 25% going into or coming out of that. So we're going to be talking about that. That's going to be our focus in this presentation.
Wow.
Awesome.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be great. Hopefully be able to give some wisdom, and we'll apply it and hopefully do well. That will be awesome.
Right. Yes.
And then your other session is going to be with the Legends of Astrology, correct?
I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Because this sounds like your philosophical bent here coming in there. So
let's say political. My political
Politically.
I don't know if you know it or not. I know Faye knows this, but I've been very active in the politics of organizational astrology since 1970s. The founding of ARC, the According to Revelation Conference, the founding of AFAN, the founding of UAC. I've been the leader of ESAR for 15 years, longer than anybody else. And I've been the director for the UAC board probably longer than anybody else has in history too. So I'm very knowledgeable in the importance of politics, because you can't get these people to cooperate if you don't compromise some of your own values. You have to have goals. You have to see, where are we headed toward? And it can't be just my view or just this person's view or just this group's view. You got to have compromises. And Merriman March taught me that, the czar of astrology back in the 1980s and 1990s. She says, Ray, if you're going to get any kind of advancement astrology, you got to listen to everybody. You got to listen to them and listen carefully and find at least one thing that they're saying that has validity, that has common sense to you, and use it. Even if it's not what you want to do, let them know that you've been heard and you value something that they said. And I did that, and I was able to keep the organizations I worked with together for quite some time. So when you talk about what we're going to do in this class, this panel, I'm bringing these legends together who were on this path with me from the 1970s, 1980s to 2010. That was the golden age of astrology, I think. That's when we went from a hobby and entertainment to being kind of taken seriously. Not kind of, we've been taken seriously. We had serious people then. And the thing is, there's been a switch at the organizational level. Prior to 2010, 2012, astrology was, I would say, politically naive, politically unbiased, socially, culturally unconcerned. Our concern was education and networking. We wanted to promote good astrology, high standards in astrology, helpful consultation skills. So we developed ethics training, we developed consulting skills training, and we developed a model for competency skills. You had to do all of those, pass all of those to get a certification through ESAR. And it worked out very, very well. We grew all over the world. We started with 200 members when I came in. When I left, we were at 1,500 or something. Alexander came on, and it grew to 3,000. He was a master at marketing education through his Star Club, which he did every week, and now all the organizations are doing that. But I got to say that there's been some kind of a social, cultural, prejudice, if you will, or preference that's gone on over, I think it's over education. Now, many would deny that, but it's become like not what you know and what kind of quality you do in astrology, but who you know and what's your value system. Okay, and that's a problem. That's a problem for the organizations, because most of the schools don't have that. The least significant thing in choosing to work with somebody is the color of their skin. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the least significant thing.
Yeah.
And yet, it's not the least significant thing in society right now, and in the socio-political realm. Well, astrology, if you look at what's going on in astrology, who represents the most diversity the most inclusiveness, sets the highest standards for astrology. It's your schools. It's your schools, not your organizations. I hope they go back to what they had, what they grew, and what their tradition gave them the strong foundation to grow with. I hope they go back to that. But at this point, I think the movement is more toward education. The future of astrology is education. And that's the purpose of this panel, to talk about the future of astrology through education.
It's gonna be excellent. Yeah.
And each of these people on here are really excellent teachers. We're talking Christine Skinner, Charlotte Benson, the head of the ACVA, the American College of Vedic Astrology, owner Dosar, who has the largest astrology school in the world. He and the Chinese with David Rayleigh and Felicia Young, but I don't think that they won't be on this program this time. Pam Gallagher has a great school in Cincinnati. Dimitri George is a teacher at many of these schools. And of course, Alexander Surgic. To me, he's the epitome of good education. And Glenn Perry, I don't think Glenn Perry's coming either, but he also has a good school out of Florida. Giselle Terry, who works with your team. Ann Ortley. These are all great teachers, and I hope they're going to be part of it. I know some of them are going to be part of this panel. They got a heavy investment of their life already put into this work. So share that with us and what we have for the future.
Mm.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing, and I feel honored to. I told Faye this. We were just talking privately, but I told her I was honored to be able to interview everyone and be part of the conference. I know we've been doing the VA conference for years, but this is just next level into the world of astrology, not just VA. I love VA, don't get me wrong, but it's like a whole other door. And Faye was my gateway drug to getting to know.
That's to go to Faye and her staff. You on here today. This is a bold move. This is not your normal community that you're working with. You've been working with pure researchers, and Faye came to me and said, we want to broaden out. We want to attract other astrologers and other things than just research. And together we forged a program here that Faye has graciously put together, invited. I think it's going to be the most exciting conference going on next year. I'm excited about it. You not only got great intellectuals here, you got people who are harmonious to work with. They are easy to work with. They know the importance, not just of competency and being on time, but being part of a team, working together for a greater good. These people know that. You got them all. I'm really proud of the faculty.
Yes, thank you. That's what your health too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think there's been a noticeable, with what Faye's wanted to do with the idea of convergence, instead of, because I've been involved in some different astrology things, and everybody has the best astrology, and it gets to be more of a competitive almost thing instead of a sharing thing where, hey, this is what I do, this works for me, do it or not, it doesn't matter, what do you do? And so I think Faye's heart was to bring people together to share what works. What do they do? What works? Where we're just in open, not trying to convert people, not trying to but just to share. And so to have astrologers come together to be able to share what they're involved in, what they're doing, what they've worked on, their research, whatever is working for them. Let's see if we can't just have a community that doesn't fight or isn't trying to win over everybody else, but let's just share and see what happens.
You hit a very important point. I mean, that is the issue on the two paths that we have in the astrology community today. You got the competitive side that seems to think the only way I'm going to get ahead is to put somebody else down. And then you got the others that say, well, the only way to get ahead is to bring other people up. If I'm supporting them, I'm building networks that are supportive, and everybody benefits in.
Right, and that's an experience that we had, at least I'm sure you too, but
I heard about it.
With the vibrational community, right? It was, we all helped each other working together, but now it's nice to see that we're connecting with people of different thought processes, different schools of thought. But they're also doing the same thing that we were doing with just the vibrational, not just, but the vibrational part of it. So it's really nice to know that there is ability to learn from each other and to grow and to flourish. And I mean, collectively, we're greater than just on our own
Mm,
too. So that's also part of it as well. So
yeah.
Well, you
And
got three different
astrology
groups
is,
coming here. You got the financial community coming, you've
yep,
got the legends coming, and you got the vibrational community coming.
yep,
And I think we're all
Right.
going to get along fine because they're all interested in
yeah,
the same thing: advancement of truth and data that shows there's a correlation between cycles in the cosmos and cycles in human activity.
yes,
We all
Yeah.
share that, and it's a
Yeah.
positive.
yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this conference is really a convergence of so many knowledges in astrology combined
Yeah,
together, and all the attendees will be able to experience and learn and go home with something that they can use applied to their own lives or their own professional astrological business. Yeah,
very well said. Very good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Ray,
It's
tell us
been,
about your book that's coming out.
oh yeah,
Well, every year I write a forecast book. It's an astrological almanac. It's actually an almanac of cycles and astrology. It revives an old tradition that was came on to the world in the 1450s with the Gutenberg printing press. Back in the late 1400s, they were selling 50,000 copies of almanacs a year. 50,000.
Yeah.
I don't sell that today, but I mean, we sell thousands, but not 50,000. But then all of a sudden it died because what happened is when you had more and more people competing for that market, the way they would get their customers by making outlandish predictions. And they got so
Oh,
outlandish that they lost the
wow.
audience. And especially was damaging when they had a conference and the astrologers couldn't even tell the difference between a partial eclipse and a
Oh,
full
wow.
eclipse. And so the astrological almanac died in the going to 1500s. It was revised again with William Lilly and Raphael and Great Britain. But even
It,
that kind of died after the war,
it did
World War
not
II.
succeed. Yeah, didn't take
No.
very long to go down. Yeah.
So I started my tradition of astrological almanacs, the annual forecast book, in 1976. This will be my 49th year of publication. And it is a book. I mean, it's 200 pages long. And it goes over each of the major aspects and what happened historically and what are the themes present today and what are the possibilities because of that. I go over the financial markets: gold, silver, stock market, treasury, interest rates, currencies, crude oil, grain prices. And yeah, it's like I said, it's 200 pages. We sell thousands every year in different languages, and people love it. And it's been a staple of our business. It'll be 50 years next year. That'll be my 50th year.
Wow.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You
that's
And it comes
amazing.
out
succeeded
December 15th
longer.
every year. Yeah.
Mm,
December 15th. Well, I will definitely be checking that out because that sounds like an amazing book to add
yeah.
to something I do
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
a regular basis.
Uh,
Yeah, so that's fantastic and
Thank you.
exciting to know that there is this, I mean, almost 50 years history of,
It'll be, yeah, 49
obviously,
years going on 50. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Amazing.
obviously you're getting somewhere if you have an audience for that long of time too, that you're
Yeah, I survived all that time, so there must be something to what I'm doing. It's weird.
right, exactly. That's
I think the
great.
key
Yeah.
is, you gotta do good quality work. You gotta do your research. You have to be
Oh,
authentic.
yeah.
You can't, like Christopher said, you can't be trying to convert people or, compete with them. You just do the best job you can. Set the bar high for yourself, and other people will respond accordingly. And they've been very
Yeah.
supportive. I couldn't have made it this long had it not been for support of all of these people around the world that have touched and have touched me, my life, for the
Yeah.
last 50 years. So I'm very grateful for this.
Well, I think the main reason why you succeeded towards the others that started it is because you every year you're advancing it to a different level. You are researching it and adjusting to the current trend. If you don't, it's gonna die because it becomes old.
That's
You're
right. You
making
keep
it
repeating
new
the same
and
thing over
current.
and over again. People get tired of it. So every year
Yeah.
it starts out fresh. It's good for me too because it gives me the plan. You can't be
Mm.
successful as an investor or trader without a plan. You can't just say, "Oh, today I think gold's going up. I'm going to buy it." You need to have a plan. Like if it goes to this level, it's a buy. If it gets to this level, it's a sell. And this is what I'm
Mm.
going to do. This is my trading plan. This is my investment plan. So I do that every day. I wake up and I review my plan and I write my next
Mhm.
plan and I'm researching. So I look forward to every day to what am I going to discover and what's the market telling me? What are people telling me? What am I learning every
Yeah.
day and how can I apply this? Yeah.
You're doing all the work, not just sitting there and use the
Yeah,
current
you're right. I'm
energy.
doing the work. And it's good for a Capricorn, right? A sun, moon, and Mars in Capricorn.
Oh,
I
yeah.
need to work. If I don't work, I don't know what I would do. I love to work. I mean, I
Oh,
love the work
you're
that
a
I
sun,
do.
moon, Mars in Capricorn. Your sun, moon,
Yes,
Mars
I
in Cap.
am.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm hearing
I
all this
work.
about I wake up and going to do a plan. It's like, okay, that makes sense then.
And
Very
I'm Virgo
visionary.
rising.
He's
So
got the
I'm Virgo. Oh my
scientific
goodness.
mind. Yeah.
I guess my only astrological pedigree would be Neptune is close to the ascendant and Uranus is close to the midheaven with the
That
north.
saves you. That saves
Uh-oh.
you.
That's me, exactly. I think if it hadn't been that way, I'd probably be an accountant or something like that. But
Yeah, that's
I
what. Well,
wanted to be. I want to be a
when you were,
prolific writer and researcher. So my
I think when
really
you were
planet prolific
sharing
prime Pluto.
about looking at the communities, the flower children and everything.
Yes.
I mean, I moved to Jacksonville to be a part of a intentional community. So I
Uh-huh.
like when you're sharing that, it's like I'm okay. That
You're
was
somebody
very
I could
much
have
a part.
interviewed.
What's that?
You're
Yes.
somebody I could have surveyed.
Well, I was coming from again the Seattle area, and my mom and dad, back in the 70s, got involved in a church, which was really a Jesus people church, which was an offshoot of some of the flower people and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was my introduction to community, and when you get involved in that, it gets into your blood and it's hard to get out. Like
Yeah.
there's something about community there, so it's very interesting when I'm hearing you talk about that. It just brings back a lot of memories and just
Yeah.
a lot of
I'm good.
things that are
I'm
there.
glad I'm glad I inspired that part in you. That's a good memory to have.
Oh, it's wonderful. And, to see and to recognize things that go on, recognizing patterns. I mean, of course, for a Capricorn Virgo, my moon's in Virgo. So like patterns,
Well, that's
they
what we
just,
do. Chris. Our job is to
yeah,
pattern match. We
yes,
find patterns and we match them with the themes, and we draw all these themes together to tell stories that
yes.
draw us into our understanding of astrology.
Well, it's really, to me, it draws us into our understanding of life. It's what it does.
Yes.
Like, which
Well,
astrology is just
where
giving you
would,
a language for life.
yeah, where would life be without our stories?
I don't
It's what
think it
keeps us together
exists.
and networks us.
Yeah, it's like nothing without the stories. It's really exciting. It's also like that's why I'm very interested in the legends, because I think you're there needs to be strong foundations and people need to understand the foundations because it's part of the story. If you don't know the story, then you don't know what you're a part of and what you're doing. You've got to know the story. And so I think doing something like that and allowing people to hear some of the story. I didn't know that things were illegal in Atlanta, and that there was this group working. I didn't know that. I mean, it's just not something that's out there that you read about or hear about. That's important to know. It's important to
It's
know
true.
what's come before us. And,
Mm,
you know, if you don't know the history, you're just doomed to fall into pit holes that you're going to repeat a
Repeat
lot of the
it,
same
really.
problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's
That's why when they
very,
try to erase history in the schools and stuff,
yes.
I think that's so crazy because that is a reality. If you don't know it, you won't repeat.
Well, what they do when they cancel their history and tradition is they end up doing the same things and making the same mistakes that have already been corrected and doing it all over again. So it just
Yep.
makes things a little more inefficient, a little more difficult to get through. It'd be much easier if you would just talk to the legends, if you will, or the people who've been there, been through those problems and have solved them. How did they solve them? So you don't have to fall into those same pitfalls again. But
yeah.
many people feel that they need to be so independent, they need to actually break away from the tradition. And unfortunately, that's kind of what's happened a lot in astrology.
Yeah.
Do you think
So
that's going to be more so because of Pluto moving into Aquarius, or do you think it's going to be more?
the opposite. I think that's going to resurrect astrology in its not its ancient roots, not the
Right.
traditional, but it's
gonna
going to
bring it
resurrect
back.
modern day astrology and give it a
Right.
new blend.
Yes,
And I think
yes.
it'd be really good for modern day. Modern day astrology took a big hit since Pluto went into Capricorn. The old time
Yeah.
traditionalists gained all the clout, and all the students were coming in through astrologers that were thousands of years ago. I mean, yeah, they had interesting techniques, but it was a whole different society. It was a whole different evolutionary period for humanity at that time. We've advanced so much more, and you just can't cut out that advancement and the application that astrology provides to understand today's world by trying to apply how it worked in 500, 600, thousands of years ago. It's not that you want to discount that,
Right.
but you don't want to cut off what's happened in the last 40 or 50 years. That was very significant
Yes.
for astrology becoming a credible, respectable profession throughout the world. We don't want to cut that out. I don't want to cut out. And I know these people you've invited don't want to cut out. They want to embellish it. And they should.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, that sounds wonderful because you get a balance of old and tradition and then the new, but incorporating it in a way that's fresh and alive and not old.
Yes.
I think that's going on. Well, it needs to go on in so many different factors in the world, but there's no reason why it can't start with astrology. There's no reason why astrology can't model this type of thing, because it's needed in corporations, it's needed in religious religious spheres, it's needed in so many places where they hold on to an old way that just isn't functioning that way anymore. And it's not that it's bad, it's had its time, but it needs to be revived. It needs to have a new infusion. And so it's exciting to hear you talk about that and to start with it. I mean, I'm glad that this will be recorded, that the time with the legends will be recorded, because I think that's going to be important. I think it's going to be important to take some of these things that people can understand, because it's not where, as you say, you're not fighting for the old as so many do. This is where we've come from. These are the lessons we learned. And now how do we move forward with these lessons?
Yeah. And I think that's what most of the schools are doing. Most of the schools that I know of, they are following that path toward, if you will, opening up, enlightening, inclusion of the world and all the bodies of knowledge we have, and not just saying, okay, that 2,000-year technique dominates how we're going to look at houses, how we're going to look at interpretation, how we're going to look at delineation. It's not all. It's inclusive as opposed to exclusive, saying only that works, and the modern stuff has been, off center. So in reference to your question, Sterling, I think it's a revival of the modern day astrology. I think the principles that we were founded on in modern day astrology, which is give the client, give the world, give the populations a choice. Don't sit up there, entertain them, and make predictions and tell them this is the way it's going to be. I'm the authority, and you just have to follow me. That's the old age, and it's had a revival, but you don't want to cancel out the modern improvements that we've made on that to actually help people and help societies. And the value to society is not going back to prediction that's fatalistic and sensationalistic. We're not entertainers. We're helpers. We're choice
and
givers.
plus, exactly, you don't want to make decisions for you because you're taking their power away from them too. And
there you go. Are we empowering them or disempowering them? Are we empowering ourselves or disempowering them? There's a whole different synergy going on here.
I say that all the time to clients. They'll say, well, what do I do? And it's like, well, I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what's going on, but yourself.
Here's what's going on. Here's your choices. You make it.
That empowers someone, right? And that's so important too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. With this Pluto in Aquarius, it's gonna bring it all out to the open, make it modern to the current trend, and it's through the process of unification.
Yeah, and what's going to support that, I think, is Uranus going to Gemini trine it. Some people are afraid of Uranus going to Gemini. Think, AI is going to take over astrology. No. It may take over astrology. People just want information, but for people who actually want help, you need to sit down with an astrologer to look at your chart, feel what you're going through, and relate it to your chart. Yes. AI can't do that. It's only information. Yes. And a good astrology consultation isn't just information, it's choice.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it's seeing what the person is actually going through too, because
That's right.
as we
You
know,
have to
you could be
listen.
born at the same time with someone else and have a completely different experience, even though you have the same
Mhm.
chart. It's just your life experience and what's around
Not
you
everybody
will
who goes
shape
through Uranus and a hard aspect of the moon goes through a divorce or goes
Right,
through a
that's
marriage
true.
if they got Uranus and Venus. They don't all do the same thing. Some people get together, some people go a new independent path, and they flourish in a new direction in life. So people respond differently to the same aspect in
Yes.
one chart to the other chart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think life is really a story, and astrologers have to be storytellers. They have to give,
Yes,
like, these are your
good
options.
astrologers and storytellers. You're
Yes.
right.
Yes. And you engage the person in that story. You engage them to where they can see what is the possibility of my next chapter. What are the things that I'm writing this? And you get them into that view so they can start see their past story as it's forming and moving, and let them envision the new story that's coming forth.
Mhm.
So,
You know, I had a theory about that with astrology, how you read the chapters of the book of life. And it seems to work pretty good with the North Node. You know, I really feel that your book, you have 3 or 4 books in life, and they begin with the North Node crossing the nadir.
mm,
That's the beginning of each book. When it gets to an eighth harmonic, 45 degree, you
mhm.
know, that's a turning point. You know, am I going to continue on this new phase, or am I going to go back to the old phase that was familiar? If you stay
Mm,
with it, when it gets to the ascendant, then you actually start manifesting the new changes of your new life that you conceived of at the nadir. And you
mm.
keep growing and prospering to get the midheaven,
I
the
like
peak
that.
life experience. So
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
all outlined in the book I wrote, the first book ever on evolutionary astrology, The Journey of the Soul Through the Horoscope. The
Mm,
popular renditions of evolutionary astrology started in the late 1980s, but
mm.
I originated that movement, that school of thought, in 1977. And it's
Wow.
one of the themes of it, one of the principles of it was the North Node transiting the angles, the midpoints, the angles, the
Mm.
1/8 harmonics in your chart. And it
Hmm.
works pretty good.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, I started in vibrational astrology or harmonics, and then I went to evolutionary astrology next because of that.
Okay. Well, they're
because
connected.
because with vibrational astrology, it was giving a lot of details, factors of things, but I needed a story. And so I found within evolutionary astrology that it helped me form the story.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly what you're describing. Because for
That's
me,
how
that's
people connect with one another through the
yes.
stories.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, again, you take a Jesus and his whole thing was telling parables. That was how he did it, telling stories, I mean,
The whole Bible was that way, wasn't
it
it?
was. That's the way it
It
is.
is,
It's
yeah.
all
In fact,
stories.
all your great books and religions are based upon stories.
Well, our
So
Yes.
the story
entertainment
of
is based
birth,
on
the
our
story of
total
resurrection.
Hollywood
Right.
is Hollywood is based on telling good
Yeah,
stories.
yeah, and
That's
we
what the
love our
world
stories.
craves. Yeah.
Yeah,
And as astrologers, we have the opportunity to do that in a very personal way. So
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great. Well, this is going to be a great conference. It's going to be exciting to hear you speak,
It
hearing the
will.
legends there, and telling the
Super.
stories that a lot of us don't necessarily know. That'll be very
Well, we'll
interesting.
be glad to share our stories. We got a lot of them between the 20 or so of the legends that are going to be there. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome.
Super excited about the legends too, because learning from everyone, I just love doing that. And I recently, in the last couple of years, started teaching vibrational astrology myself. So I know I'll learn a lot from all of you. And I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that. So it'll be wonderful because, like you said, we learn and we grow from our past and we understand that from the people that came before. So this is like the perfect
Sure.
place.
Mhm.
Yeah, it will share a wisdom, hopefully, that other people outside of just the speakers will be able to experience too, and take something home with them to work with their own
They
practice.
will. When you get that many good people together, it'll be a good experience. It'll be a very exciting awakening for many people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
it definitely will be.
it's amazing when that type of energy all gets together. It's just a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
It
This
really
And it
is.
is.
will be here too. It's going to be a beautiful experience, I'm sure of it.
Yeah. This is going to be the first time that all of the the legends in astrological community, the people that really worked on it and became famous with it, became really, really excellent in their methodology, are all sharing together in this one conference. This will
Yeah,
be an experience of a lifetime for everybody.
it will be. It will be. And thank you so much for organizing this and putting it
Yeah,
together, making
Yes,
it
thank you.
possible. Yeah,
yeah.
all of you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've been the great help of this whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
this was a great session. Thank you so much, Ray, of course, for joining us. And of course, we'll see everybody at the conference. And yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. See you there. See you in March.
Bye.
See you,
Sign
Ray.
up now. Don't wait any longer. Sign up now. Make sure you're on it. You're not going to regret it if you go. If you don't go, you're going to regret it. If you go, you're going to be amazed at how wonderful an effect this has on the quality of your life from that day forward. So please join us. Sign up now. Don't miss this.